Glad to have you with us. Now, there's heavy security presence on the Winneba campus of the University of Education, Winneba. Some hours after its sacked Vice-Chancellor Professor Atta Avoke stormed the university's administrative block ostensibly to announce his reinstatement. UEW members of the University Teachers Association of Ghana have also distanced themselves from the content of a statement issued by President of the association yesterday. Dr. Frimpong Oketre-Duku announced the return of Professor Atta Avoke as the substantive Vice-Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba. He has been explaining the reason for his action to my colleague Evans Menta on Top Story yesterday.
University. Individuals are intentionally preventing him from occupying his office, and he believes that justice must be prevailed. So having gone to court and having restrained the person who is preventing him from going to office, he felt it was right for him to go and work. I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding is that when it's served, it takes effect. Injunction takes effect the moment you receive it. And therefore, we believe that from that moment, Professor Afuboni could not consider himself as a Vice-Chancellor of UW again. And therefore, we can't create a vacuum. Whoever was the substantive Vice-Chancellor before the application must then come back to office. That's why we went to office today. Based on the exoneration of Yoko report, a statutory body that is mandated to investigate criminal activities in the country. Somewhere in April, Professor Avoke had a press conference stating that he was briefed and he has a copy of that report indicating that he has been exonerated. If you look at point 7 of that report, it's rather the current or the person who is considering himself as the Vice-Chancellor of the university now who was more or less indicted. And because he doesn't want to face the court or the law, that's why he's now incumbent himself as the Vice-Chancellor of the university, which we believe is wrong. I'm sure everybody knows that Professor Atta Avoke is a law-abiding individual. He wanted the process to work. When Professor Yanka, the sector minister, came to UW on our matriculation somewhere in June, he admonished the existing Vice-Chancellor and indicated that he doesn't want a situation where we have two Vice-Chancellors in the university. So he needed to do the needful. He has more or less closed his ears to every advice made to him by the president, the sector minister, the minister for education, and the rest. So we believe it has come to the point that if he, being inducted by Iroko's report, is not prepared to go to court, then he should leave that office for the one who is rightfully better to occupy that position.
Dr. Duku later issued a new statement imploring all members of the association on campus to lend their support to Professor Avoke as he resumes his former position as the substantive Vice-Chancellor. But the lecturers on campus say they cannot be part of that decision. We have that statement with us. We'll bring you excerpts of that. It says, "For the avoidance of doubt, we wish to state categorically that the press release represents the personal parochial views of Dr. Frimpong Oketre-Duku and his executives and does not arise from a majority or consensus decision of the entire UEW-UTAG members. Most especially, the press statement is a huge indictment on the integrity of Dr. Frimpong Oketre-Duku, who a few weeks ago had been granted pardon by the UEW Governing Council for an earlier disciplinary action on some acts that constituted gross misconduct. Indeed, we, the general members, had in an earlier press conference in March 2019 pleaded with the Governing Council to temper justice with mercy and recall Dr. Frimpong Oketre-Duku and some 2 others back to work following their dismissal. The Governing Council granted our request and reinstated the 3 culprits through its power of pardon. We therefore shudder at this nauseating, recalcitrant behavior of Dr. Frimpong Oketre-Duku as exhibited through the press release and interviews granted the media, and tacitly supporting the barging into office by Professor Avoke and some other officers. This behavior by Dr. Frimpong Oketre-Duku reinforces the fact that Council's earlier decision to dismiss him for acts of gross misconduct was well thought out and deservedly applied. Again, any UTAG leader worth his salt would have ensured that such an important decision that attempts to support a Rambo-style removal of a sitting Vice-Chancellor or that seeks to support a rehearsed, gate-crashing reinstatement of a former Vice-Chancellor should have been taken at a well-organized general meeting of the entire UTAG UEW members. Indeed, We, the bona fide members of Utah UEW, find the behavior and act perpetrated by Professor Mauso Afoke and the other dismissed officers and the behavior of Dr. Frimpong Ketchwe Duku, as well as some serving staff on the afternoon of Tuesday, July 23, 2019, was not only abhorrent, but a huge scar on the integrity of some intellectuals who once led the university and are still seeking, through the several suits filed at the court, to once again become leaders of the university. We are also aware of a court action as the Cape Coast High Court by the same Professor Avoke and the dismissed officers seeking to challenge their dismissal or being asked to step aside, and was hoping that Professor Avoke and the other dismissed officers would have had the patience to wait for the court's ruling, which we understand will be delivered on July 30, 2019. Indeed, what is even more worrisome is the fact that this Rambo-style attitude of self-reinstatement by the dismissed officers is a conspicuously contemptuous attitude by Professor Avoke and his cohorts shown to the courts the very place where they are seeking justice. This statement is signed by Eric Nketia on behalf of Utah UEW members. Now, Professor Mauso Afoke told pressmen yesterday he will be back to campus to resume his official duties today. My colleague Richard Kojonyako has been monitoring developments on campus this morning, and he reports there's heavy security presence at the Winneba campus. He also indicated that as at 10 a.m., he had not seen any signs of Prof. Avoke near the campus. We will be taking you live to the University of Education Winneba campus, and we'll be finding out if indeed he returned to work. Before that, though, police have begun. Okay, so let's go now to my colleague Maxwell Agbagba, who is monitoring events on the University of Education Winneba campus. Maxwell, what can you report?
A lot of police officers stationed here in front of the administrative block of the University of Education Winneba campus. I've seen quite a number of them, about 20 of them right in front of the administrative block. Business is going on as usual here, but what has changed is that if you're entering the university campus now, they run checks to make sure that you're not entering with any material or any object that can harm the people here. I have with me the public relations officer of the university, Ernest Azutiga. Earlier, the university released a statement urging all their members and other stakeholders to remain calm because everything, is under control. Let me speak to the public relations officer now. You described what happened here yesterday as an aborted coup d'etat. How is the university taking this?
Well, that is exactly what it is. The university sees this attempt yesterday as a coup d'etat that was aborted, and we are not taking it lightly at all. Fortunately, they themselves have initiated a court process as a law-abiding institution. We wish to go by that line. We'll be at court. They have served us. We have taken it. We'll be at court to give our side of the story, and hopefully the court will come out with a determination. But before then, we would have to do whatever is necessary to secure this university, the facilities of the university, the persons who come in to deal with the university, and our students and staff who go about their daily activities on the university, and make sure that they are safe and they can do normal business at the university.
One of the reasons why the Vice Chancellor came in yesterday was that he's been exonerated by Yoko. He's been cleared of any procurement infractions that he was accused, of.
Well, we don't know of any Yoko report. As I speak to you now, we have not been served by Yoko regarding that particular report. But in any case, the dismissal of those officers was not contingent on any Yoko work or Yoko report. It was based on the governing council's fact-finding committee, which committee tried to gather facts on the court matter and came across certain breaches, for which reason it had to trigger a disciplinary board to be set up so that these people could be given the opportunity to give their side of the story to defend whatever infractions were detected or explain. They were given the opportunity. They failed to turn up before the board on several occasions. This university attempted to get them to get their side of the story, but they rejected it. Now, rejecting or refusing to come before the board to give your side of the story itself amounted to gross misconduct, and that is grounds for dismissal, and that was why they were dismissed. Now, there has been a ruling on 25th. There was a ruling that indicated that the court usually relies on alternative measures. Now, where there is an alternative means by which the case can be resolved, the court prefers that. And so the court process can go on concurrently with administrative processes. And they not taking that opportunity. I mean, that case, not this particular one. This one is still pending for ruling. That case, that individual not taking advantage of the window of opportunity that was given to him to come and defend himself meant that he injuncted himself from giving his side of the story, and he could not blame the university for dismissing him. This particular court, again, this particular case where they have made a case for this BNI Yoko report at the court, is pending before the court. They have Honorable Afenyo Makin, who came in as through a joinder motion at the court, came to make arguments, and his arguments were essentially on BNI and Yoko report. These arguments have been made before the court. The court is about to make determination, so why not wait for the court to come out with an authoritative decision so that we all know clearly what the way forward is? Why the rush? Why do you put the cart before the horse?
So what would you say is the state of the university now?
Everything is calm. Students are going about their activities, they are attending lectures. Those who are dealing with us are coming into the various offices to carry whatever businesses that they have to carry. Everything is going on as expected of the university, and continue to urge members of the general public that everything is calm. They are free to come to the university to engage us in any business that they wish to engage us in.
Right, thank you very much, Maxwell. That was Maxwell Agbagba speaking with the Public Relations Officer for the University of Education, Winneba. Away from that story, tension is simmering down in the western region town of Diskov following what seems to be a reprisal by residents of Lower Diskov. Information available to Joy News indicates that some residents are fleeing the area to Busia and other nearby towns. The chief of Upper Diskov, Obrimpo Himadechi the 15th, allegedly ordered the attack and kidnap of the chief of Lower Diskov, Nana Kwesi Agyeman the 9th, by 4 of his subjects on Sunday night. The 5 were subsequently rescued by the police from the palace of Nana Himadechi, who is the chief of Upper Diskov. Now, the suspect turned himself in to the police yesterday after police declared him wanted. Latest reports indicate some persons believed to be residents of Lower Diskov are in retaliation, attacking the people of Upper Diskov. Residents of Upper Diskov are accusing the police of looking on while they are being attacked without any provocation. My colleague, Inathalia Kwanza, joins us on the phone with the latest. Hello, Ina. Are you able to confirm if these images of injured persons are residents of Upper Diskov?
Yes, Daniel. I have been able to confirm that these images are residents of Upper Diskov. But the police, which is an authority to confirm this, have not done that. I have from morning to get in touch with the public relations officer, DSP Olivia Rabnadeko, but the lines are not going through.
When and how did they sustain these injuries?
Well, Daniel, I understand this injury was sustained yesterday, but as to how they sustained it, I can't talk because we know that there is still police or security presence at this cove making sure that they calm down tensions. I cannot tell how that happened.
Now, police is being accused of doing nothing. What have you gathered on this?
Daniel, I cannot speak to this because I've not been able to speak to the police. These are just accusations from residents of Atta Disco. So you need the police to confirm what really this is, or for them to say it is not true.
Thank you very much, Natalia Fansa. Now, police have begun arresting persons who refuse to use the newly constructed footbridge over the Medina-Adenta highway. Checks by Joy News indicate some residents are making nonsense of the pressure mounted on governments by both the residents and the media to get the footbridges fixed after many lost their lives while attempting to cross the highway. Despite the risks involved, residents are failing to change their attitude. The police have subsequently gone to site to ensure residents use the footbridge. My colleague Roland Walker was with ACP Kwesi Fori and his men this morning who made some arrests.
They've caught tens of people, not only 10, more than 20, more than 30, who have been detained at the Adenta District Police Headquarters, and we're having caution being given to them by Mr. Kwesi Fori and the rest of the team. Now, this has been done to ensure that nobody becomes a victim the next time around. So just by way of education, they are detained in the meantime, not in the negative sense of the word. Of course, they're wasting their time, and it includes even school children. So those accompanying adults decided not to use the footbridges in the company of these school kids, and then even those in secondary school and normal adults. How are you?
I'm fine.
And where do you go to school?
Adenta.
Adenta. And you were crossing the road?
Yeah.
But what did you have an adult crossing the road with you, or you were crossing the road alone? You were in Josephine. So all of you were in school. Ideally, you should have somebody you cross the road with, okay? So next time when they want to take you to school and you have to cross the road, say you want to use a footbridge, okay?
Okay.
What's your Mr. Kwesi Fori? I know this is not in a negative way, but you're detaining them to make sure that the right things are done. What are you doing to them currently?
Now, looking at your campaign and looking at what police intend doing, today we're going to advise them. It's going to be like a school where we'll be talking to these little ones, some of the parents and the elderly who also have, endangered themselves by avoiding the foot bridges and, going through the rough way. So now we're going to educate them, caution them, and see no more. And because it's a community project, this is a symbiotic relationship between the police and the media, which you are championing. You in particular, Joy FM in particular, is championing.
Joy News.
Joy News
as well.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to them not to do it again, because some of the little ones are going to school. You can see some are the youngsters and other schools. And we'll be going to the nearby schools as part of the project with the police PR team to educate them to use it. So it's not going to be the enforcement aspect alone. We're going to do a lot of education, sensitize them, and to embrace good habits, good attitude, to support the state. Whilst following that demonstration, government demonstrated this goodwill. So it is up to the people also to use these facilities, and we don't want to witness knockdowns, injuries, and death on the highway anymore.
Still live on Joy News today, now still up ahead in the bulletin. Honor the memory of late President Atta Mills by dealing with the polarized nature of politics in Ghana. That's the admonition from various speakers at a wreath-laying ceremony to mark the 7th anniversary of the death of the late President Atta Mills. Details after the break. Thanks for staying with us. Now, another memory of late President Atta by dealing with the polarized nature of politics in Ghana. That's the admonition from various speakers at a wreath-laying ceremony to mark the 7th anniversary of the death of the late President Atta. Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo, says the growing sense of intolerance and the culture of silence is not what the late professor stood for.
Service. Through this professional excellence, through this great personal morality, John Atta bequeathed a faithful example to all who aspire to leadership in this nation. This annual commemoration affords us a solemn moment to consider our fidelity to the good professor's example and to reflect on the principles and practice of his leadership style. We are gathered here at the time when our commitment as a nation to fairness and transparency in governance is wavering as to the rights and duty of Ghanaians to criticize their leadership on those grounds. The culture of silence that is fast enveloping our country attests to a growing intolerance of dissent and critical opinions. It stands in stark contrast to the practice of freedom and justice that Professor Mills sought to consolidate under his leadership, and which I so effortlessly exemplified after taking over from him. Ghana's hard-won global reputation for media freedom has been badly dented under the President Akufo-Addo's regime. We have seen it tarnished by denunciation of the press, threat and instigation against journalists, selective and forcible shutdown of FM stations perceived to be critical of government, among others. At this time of our nation's history, the qualities of Professor Mills' leadership and the tenets of his personal morality takes on a new luster.
Former Minister and Ambassador to South Africa, Kwesi Ahoy, says values such as peace, unity and tolerance, which the late former president stood for, are missing in today's politics. He wants leaders and politicians to revive what he calls the Asomdwe days.
That in governance, in political administration, it should not be them against us. It should be all of us together, because that's what Ghana is. We're talking about a country, a people, forging together in a forward direction. So he always regretted when signs were seen of attempts at dividing the people and embedding in them this attitude of them against us. When the priest was preaching, he talked about the polarization of this country.
Exactly, that is where we have gotten to now.
Professor Mills never believed in that. And I wish what we are saying of Ghana today didn't happen, because I belong to his school. I don't believe in polarization. I believe in working together. Yeah, we may have different views and all, but it doesn't mean that we must break this country into two and you are either here or you are there. No. So that's one thing that I will forever remember my boss with. And he stood for everybody. He was friends with everybody across the political divide, even those who vilified him. I share in that philosophy. I stand in that philosophy. But I can't say that for many of the leadership of this country today. They don't believe in that. And that is the sadness that we are.
What can be done to address the situation? Because that is where we are now.
It takes the leadership. It takes the leadership. The leadership must be seen to be forging people together. So I will pray that when I talk of leadership, it's not today's only. I'm talking about today's leadership, tomorrow's leadership, and the leadership that will follow. Because as Professor Mills said, If you do it to me this time, I'll do it to you. My children will do it to you. Your children will do it to me. And it goes on and on and on and on. That's not the way to build a country.
Professor Mills is a great leader, was a great leader. And I'm saying this because sometimes on the outside, you will think that he doesn't have strength within him, but he's a man of great faith. And because of his faith and his belief in God, that it is God who moves all things, that made him a very strong man spiritually. And sometimes it is only on contact with him that you know the strength that he has to move this country. And the only thing I would like to remember about him, and I will always remember, is his philosophy about governance, his political ideas. He believed that politics is by the people and for the people. And it is that the people should drive their own political agenda. And because of this, he was such a great socialist, and he stood for the will of the people.
Many people have referred to President Mills as a reluctant politician. I don't think that he was a reluctant politician. I think that he was the kind of politician that Ghana needs. Thank you very much.
And may his soul rest in perfect peace. Coming up in business, energy experts challenges profitability of the Tema oil refinery should the country's total debt be cleared. Now, the National Media Commission says the Joy News documentary on the presence of the DI group as the Osu Castle was in public interest, but cites aspects as sensational. In March this year, the government of Ghana filed a complaint against the NMC against Joy News, demanding a retraction and apology. The NMC has ruled on that matter, and Fifi Kumson has joined me in the studio to tell us more. Fifi, what does it say?
Okay, I have a copy of the ruling here, and let me read portions. In fact, there was the need to determine whether or not the people there were a militia or a vigilante group. Now, I read here, the Commission set out the issues for determination to include the issue of what is a militia or vigilante, when the group exited the castle, and whether the portion of the documentary focused on the group exposed any act of violence. Now, it says that the Commission took into account the argument of both parties and concluded that the disagreement did not so much affect the meaning of the word, but the question of whether some violent conduct had been exhibited. It continues, in the end, the Commission found out that the attempt to expose the fact that the group operated from the castle was in the public interest. However, in the attempt, the investigation had not been consistent in following the ethical standards defined by the Ghana Journalists Association Code of Ethics, particularly Guideline 23, which states that a journalist ensures that photographs and multimedia content adequately reflect an event and do not highlight an incident out of context. This resulted from the fact that whereas the respondent used a photo from a BBC report on an attack on the Nigerian Senate to promote the documentary online, they failed to relate it appropriately. And you remember that a background to this was built. In fact, I also West Wogon violence and so on and so forth. The Commission feels that that should not have been added to the documentary. Now, I read this other portion which says that, again, the inclusion of shots from the also West Wogon violence, an attack on the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, were at variance with the activities of the DI group as captured at the castle. And Daniel, there's this other portion of the ruling of the NMC that you should know. It says that on the issue of when the DI group exited the castle, whilst the government insisted that the group was evicted in October 2018, the multimedia group insisted that it was after the documentary that the eviction was carried out. It continues again. Whereas multimedia provided evidence of attempts by government officials to remove the group from the castle, it still associated the president with the group, and the commission held that it was unfair, especially when the multimedia group later publicly apologized to the president. The commission is of the view that whereas it finds the presence of the I group problematic and unacceptable, the group did not manifest any violent conduct to be described as a militia or vigilante group from the documentary, as the people of Ghana have commonly come to know such group. But you remember that the I group described itself as a vigilante group. Yes, so we are not to retract the story. Absolutely not. In fact, what the National Media Commission is saying is that we only publish this ruling. Thank you very much, Fifi Kumsin. Thank you. Editor here, Joy News. Up next is World News.